the plastic roast. Be demons on my table, feeling the overload. Hand-painted figures lined up on the edge. In my basement, dreamland on the cutting edge.
G'day viewers, I'm Pinky, welcome to the channel. Today we're doing a quick instruction video on our new variation of the 180 degree hairpin grandstand. Now, you may be familiar with our typical grandstand. This is one here. Nice piece, nearly 400mm wide, nearly 400mm deep, and fits to Carrera. It fits into a Carrera track perfectly. I do have a regular customer who's reached out to me and asked if I could do a narrower version. I believe they've got a routed table. They've got a little section where they need a grandstand, but it's only 250mm wide. So we've taken the original one and made those modifications. So obviously, to try and keep the top a similar size with the bar and the staircase and everything else, we didn't want to reduce the actual platform at the top here. So the only way we could reduce the size of this was to remove a few of the actual stairs here and steps around this set and seating around the edges here. So it does sit a little lower in the center, but it's still a really nice looking piece. Again, it's available just like the other grandstand. It's available with a second story or just as a single platform. It actually looks quite nice and sleek as a single layer. It's actually quite nice. So I think my customer wanted one with a two-story, but they both look great. And just like the old one, if you do purchase the two-story, you can make that decision later, because just like the original grandstand, you can actually purchase the kit and then just use the actual roof section like that to do that as a single layer instead of a two-story if you want to. So it's designed to work either way. So you could have it like that, and then if you decide you want to put a second story on, you've got it there ready to go. Or you could have that there. If you find it's blocking a view of something from a certain point, you can reduce it, whatever. So quite a versatile little piece, like most of our stuff. Anyway, there you go. That's what we're doing today. So here's the video. Okay, so the kit comes in 5 boards. Here they all are here, laid out nicely as a set. So what we'll do, I'll punch all this stuff out and lay it on the table, and then we'll come straight back. Okay, so basically we have our boards laid out now. So we have our lower section here with all of our seating, and this plate here that covers here. And you can tell it's the right one because it's the same size and has these little cutouts at the back. There's 3 other plates here, as you can see. They're all slightly larger. This one here has lots and lots of holes. That's the floor level for upstairs. That's the inner roof for upstairs and the outer roof for upstairs. So put those ones aside. You won't need those for a little while. Now we also have these pieces here that all look like this very similar shape here, and this one has one on the end of it. Okay, so these all belong to this section, including this one, and we'll go through those in a minute. But you put all those into a little pile over there. You've got these little posts for upstairs on the upper deck, so put those aside. That's the wall around the bar area upstairs. That's the balustrade around the stairs. That's the staircase. And these little smaller hoops, obviously fairly small, they go upstairs. So I'll put those aside. And then these, the set of 8 of these are our pillars. Now, if you look at these pillars, you'll see that there's a wider end and a narrower end. The easiest way to sort everything out is put them all laid down with the wider end to the top, like that, and then you can pick pairs. Right, so they're a scissor fit, so that's a pair. That's clearly not a pair. That is, and that is. So it gives you your 4 pillars. So while we're doing that, we might as well throw those together now, so they're ready for later. All right, and we'll run a bead of glue down those. All right, and then we'll set those aside. All right, so we'll put those out of the way for later. And while we're at it, we might as well get the stairs sorted. So what we'll do there is, I usually like to keep my burns to the inside, so we'll just stick those in there like that. And again, burns on your treads, you might as well have those facing down. Now, if you're going to paint, you can paint all of this first. It really doesn't matter, or you can paint it all after. or don't paint it at all, whatever works for you. They're a snug fit, done that deliberately, so it just makes it a little bit easier to put together. So just make sure you put pressure in the right place so you don't break anything. All right, there we go. And that guy will go on there. Oops, I've got a bit of blank in there. See you later. All right, and you can just run that down this side. As I said, they're a bit snug, so try to get them all lined up before you push too hard. You don't want to break anything. Stubborn, there we go. Okay, all right, there's our set of stairs, done. All right, and just to make sure it stays together, I'll just put a little bead of glue on each one of these. Doesn't need much, just to stop it pulling apart. There we go. All right, put that aside, and we'll leave that and that and that over there ready for that, and we'll start on the lower level. Now, all of these pieces here work together. So basically we have some pretty obvious pieces. That's our back, so we'll put that aside. These go in last, so we'll put those aside. And then, of course, we've got our spine running down the middle. Now, when we look at these three here, two are exactly the same, and one is completely different. Okay, so basically, they're not quite exactly the same. We have two pieces here, as I've just mentioned. We've got our spine down the middle. Now, if you look closely at these three here, this one here has a different arrangement of steps, and that actually matches into this guy here. Now, the purpose of that is that is where our steps are going to be. So basically, we're going to take these ones here and put them into the spine, like so. We'll come back to these ones in a minute. And then this odd one here is in this position here, almost at the end there. You can see this gap here is a little smaller. That's where we want to be. All right. So we get those three on first. Don't worry about this guy for a minute. And we'll run a bead of glue down there just to stop them from falling out. All right, we'll let that sit for a minute while it's sitting there doing its thing. We'll put these aside. And the next thing we can look at is this guy here. So basically what we'll do, make us a bit more room there. There we go. Okay, so in the case of this board here, the stairs are usually on this side. Now, if you flip this over, you can actually run the stairs the other way and set everything up on the other side. And the stairs are universal. It just means that whatever I'm doing here on the top with the bar and what have you, you just have to reverse that. So as long as you keep that in mind, perfectly fine. So you can do it either way. So this is the way that I usually do it. So this is our balustrade section. So I'll put that on first. Now, as you can see at one end here, we have two little pins and they lock into one end of this. And if you look at the foot here, there's a skinny little foot and a wider foot. Now, the skinny little foot goes to the outside here because it's the same size and shape as these. So we want to put that like that, okay, with these two pins in the side. So we'll put them together and put them into the board like that. Okay, a couple of drops of glue. All right, that one can sit there for a moment while it dries. Just make sure that one's in all the way because these are actually quite stiff around here, including that one. So do double check and make sure you've pushed it in all the way. Okay, so I'll leave that aside for just a moment while it's drying and see how this is going. Yep, they're not lifting out. That's pretty good. Okay, now don't worry if these aren't quite square. That'll all sort of sort itself out in a minute. So take this section here and put it aside, and these should now all separate. As you can see, they're kind of joined together. All right, so you've got your little treads in here. Now be very careful of this outside one here because it's a very skinny little section here and it does break easily. So get all those apart, like so. Get the little treads off. All right, there should be 6 treads, and your upper platform, we'll start with that. So we line that guy up there, then we just work our way along each section, lining it up as we go. There we go. And just to make sure that you've got it in the right place, this actually has a smaller hole than these, and it's in a slightly different position, so you can't actually get them wrong. If you got to this point, and things aren't aligning, then you've probably got these in the wrong position. Okay, so flip that over. Just visually check that everything looks nice and snug, and then just run a bead of glue. All right, it's looking pretty good. Flip that back over. There we go. All right, nice and solid. Now the first one we want to put on is the outside one, only because it's pretty fiddly, and these tend to get in the way of this one. So start with this one. That way you can get all this lined up properly and avoid breaking these. So this just slides into here like that and drops down. And then you just got to line these up as you go. It should slide down. It's a bit snug, but it's supposed to be, so don't worry. And then just be extra careful with that guy there. And same down the other side. All right, there we go. All right, that should go all the way to the bottom. That's what we want. Lovely. Okay, now take the next size. Put that on its little locating pins. Okay, there we go. And then the last one. Okay, looking good. There we go. Now we'll just turn that over gently. Try not to bump it so they don't come loose. And just, again, just visually check that they all look nice and snug, and just give them a shot of glue. All right, and just before you finish off, just flip that back over and just double check. There was one there I spotted, that's it, got it. Just make sure they're all down nice and snug. All right, and we'll leave that aside for a moment, and we'll get to these and these in just a minute. Okay, so over here, this should definitely be dry by now. So now we can run around and drop all of these in. They're designed to be fairly snug, so be careful you don't break them, but if you grab them down low, you can push them in pretty solid without damaging them. Okay. Now the reason I've made them so tight is so that you can put most of this together before you glue, because there are a couple of things that need a bit of a twist and a wiggle, a bit of a lining, and if you glue them first, you're going to struggle with the next couple of bits. All right, so we'll get those on like that. Looking good. All right, now the next thing is the walls here. So this is our back wall, and these two pins are going into the corner. Again, I like to do burns in, out of sight. Again, it doesn't really matter if you're going to paint it, but that's just how I like to work. All right, so we get those into place. Now they are interchangeable, so if you do get them the wrong way around, don't stress, they're exactly the same. All right, make sure that's all nice and firm in place, and bead of glue down there. A couple of drops on the bottom there, so she's not going to go anywhere. Okay. All right, looking good. All right, now we'll set that aside, and this should be dry, and we'll come back to this one. All right, so now we can turn this back over. We can grab these guys, and they just pop into place there, like that. Now, if you see a bit of a gap here, where it's recessed in a couple of mil, that's intentional. That way, it just makes it a bit easier when you're putting this on the table. With so much all gathered together in one corner, you could create a bit of a pivot point. So the less protruding points, the better. So all of this section is flat, and these are recessed in a little bit. So a couple of drops of glue. All right. We'll leave it that way, because if we turn it over, they might fall out. Okay, that can sit for a second. They're done, that's done. All right, this should be dry enough now. That's the beauty of working with super glue, is it is pretty quick. It's also the downside of working with super glue, is that it is pretty quick. So if you're not 100% sure of where something has to go, you may be better off working with PVA. It's just as strong, but it takes a bit longer to dry. Okay, so now we actually need to put the bottom one of these on first. All right, so what I like to do is just slide that up like that and then start lining them up. All right, so we'll get that into the bottom couple of slots there. Again, these are going to be nice and solid, so it should be a bit stiff to get in there, which is what we want. Now this actually has a little tail that sits around on the inside of the wall. All right, and these will all just sort of clip in. Just be careful with them, but they will clip in. All right. Do the same over here. Let's get that little tail in behind there. All right. Okay, so that should go there a bit, so you can see that's not quite, that's a little bit open. So what, and this is already square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that way and then pull this post along. Just be careful not to break it. Now, if you do that a couple of times, it'll actually end up where it's supposed to be. They are tight, so do be careful. All right. Okay. Just double check that that's in about where you want it to be. Oops. You can squeeze these along a little bit. What you can do, if you actually lean these over this way, when they try to straighten themselves up, it'll actually put some tension on that rail and pull it back a little bit. See that? So just by leaning those a little bit, I've actually closed that up. Now, before I get too fancy up here, what I'll do is I'll put a drop of glue in there. So that's not going to go anywhere. We'll do the same over this side. All right, so we'll actually lean these posts over a little bit. Same thing, just to get that bit of tension. That'll pull that back there. See, there we go. Look at that. All right, just a little trick of the trade. Drop of glue in there. All right, they're both looking nice and snug. Okay, so now we can go ahead and put this one on. Now, this one's a bit of an awkward one. You've got to kind of come in on an angle, get that into place, and get it on top of the wall all at the same time. There we go. Look at that. That'll help lock that into place. So again, a drop of glue down there. Just make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Wrap that around the outside. Start sort of poking those in. All right. Just get that over there like that. There we go. Line all those up. There we go. And yep, looking nice and snug. All right. So we'll glue that one as well. And we know they're good. All right, and we'll leave those for a moment and we will come back to that and align these up. But we want to make sure that glue's nice and solid first. All right. Oh, that's right. I always put a spare one in because there's a good chance you'll break one. So you should find a spare one in the kit. Okay, this should be dry by now. We can flip that back over. We're getting through this one pretty well. All right, now, the next thing you want to do is take your end piece and sit that up here. All right. And we'll actually line up with all of those little bits and pieces. There we go, look at that. Fantastic, first time. And just a few drops of glue just to make sure it's locked in. All right, there we go. Make sure they're all down. Don't push in the middle, you don't want to break it. Just get right near the end and give that a bit of a gentle persuasion so you know it's all in place. And then a few drops of glue on there. Fantastic. Now you might notice this sticks out about 1 mil. That's deliberate. Don't worry about that. It's supposed to be like that. That's actually 8mm high, so it should sit flush with the Carrera track. Okay, right, treads. Okay, so all we do there, now I actually pre-glue the tread, so what I'll do is, so I don't end up with a big glue stain, I just put a drop right there. I'll do that on each one. Right, and let's pop those in there. You can put as little or as much glue as you like. I only put a little drop, just enough to keep it there. When you're not using these for anything other than a bit of scenery, so don't need to chemi weld them together. All right, you. That's the bottom section just about finished. All right. Now this platform here, with its 4 little notches, will actually sit on top of here. Right. A bit of a tricky one. It's designed to be a bit tight, so there we go. And just make sure everything's sitting reasonably level. And it doesn't take much, just a few drops of glue. I'll pop that back out so you can see how much I've put on. That's all I'm really putting on, just a few drops like that, nothing too crazy. All right. Okay, there we go. There we go. Drop that down into place. Oops. You can grab a couple of ball clips if you like. There should be just enough room to get them on. I highly recommend, if you're going to build scenery like this, MDF sort of stuff, get yourself a packet of ball clips because they're indispensable. Right, there we go. That's the first stage of that. All that's left to go on there now is the rail, which we'll do shortly. Now this should be dry. Now if you've managed to get this far without breaking one of those, you can throw that in the bin. And then just visually, just run your eye along there and just try and line everything up as nice and neat as you can. All right. Sometimes get a bit of movement out of them. Bit on the snug side. Whoops. There we go. Yeah, it's looking a bit better. You're looking pretty good. This side done a bit better. There we go. That's better. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now there should be a nice firm fit, but it doesn't hurt to put a couple of drops of glue in there. All right, I'll just put a couple of drops on some key sort of spots. Just enough so I know it's not going to move. All right, that'll do. Now that one's a bit wonky there, so what I might do, I might get an elastic band. Always handy to have a couple of those around as well. I'll just drop that over there. It doesn't need a lot of pressure. That one's probably a bit too small. So I might have to, what can we do with that? Right, get one of my clamps maybe, that's not a bad idea. It's a bit heavy duty, but it'll do for what we want. Just want to close that gap. You see that little bit of a gap there? You can see it when I put the clamp on, it closes it up a little bit. Just put a couple of drops of glue on there. There you go. I'll just close that up a bit neater. All right. I think we should be ready to take these off and start putting our rails on. Okay, now what you might have noticed is that this has a full balustrade wrapped around here. And now we're going to put these rails on. It's going to fully enclose this thing, so there's no entry point to get into this area. So what you can do, if you don't have track right here beside this, you can actually cut these bits of rail out of here, so you've got access straight up the stairs. If you can't do that, another thing you could do is just cut these two sections out here, so people can step onto that bottom step there. Really, that's about it. Being a narrower design, it doesn't really leave a lot of room for entry, but you know, at the end of the day, most people aren't even going to notice, just you and I. All right, so the easiest way to do this is to stand up on its end and drop that over the top, and you'll see that they'll touch the table on one side. And because it's not in its position yet, it's not touching on the others. So we'll push that into there and we'll work our way around. Okay, and just like the upper level, these should be a bit snug. You can hear that popping in there quite tight. We'll work our way around like that. If we start from one side, we should end up with this touching the table on the other side. There we go. Nice, a bit snug. Here we go. There we go. All right. Again, you can glue them if you want to, or you can just leave them like that. They're pretty snug, so it's totally up to you. I know a few guys try not to glue anything if they can help it, which is not a bad method, I guess. But I guess they're trying to keep it from looking ugly with spots of glue. But at the end of the day, if you're going to paint it, it really doesn't make any difference. As long as you know it's not going to come apart. All right. So it looks like she might be a bit long. Take some pressure off. There we go. Okay. Last one. There we go, look at that. Very good. Very nice. Okay, that's our bottom section done. So as you can see, it does completely wrap around. So you could actually remove those, fill that, or do both sides. It depends where your track finishes. If your track's running right beside, obviously you don't want people walking out into cars. So yeah, opening up a side here. You could even create something here, some steps or something, and open up one of these. Whatever works for you, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so now that's the bottom done. Now these here have been designed to only go in one direction. If you start with them the wrong way up, they're not going to work. So we have a smaller set of holes on the bottom, and that's done intentionally. So the wider end of the pillar is always to the top. That's the same on all of our models that have this style of pillar. So by putting that into there, right, it'll line up with that hole. You can see there's just a small hole compared to these guys here, which are much bigger. Now the purpose of that is that this small hole and the big hole actually interlock. See that? Oh, sorry, there was a small end and the large end of the pillar actually interlocks, right, and shares the same hole. So by putting these in the right way up in the first place, you won't get that wrong. Okay, so I'll set that aside for a minute. Now you can glue them in. It's probably better if you glue them in, particularly on this level. I'll show you why in a minute. But at this point, the next thing we want to do is, again, skinny side of the pillar down. I'm going to put that into there like that. Right. And then same on that one. Right. And then we'll just put a couple of drops of glue just to make sure they're not going anywhere. Doesn't take much. It's a pain if you're trying to put this together and you keep lifting it and all these fall out. I can tell you, if you haven't got them glued in at one side, they're a real pain. Okay, that will go up on there. I'm just reaching in with my fingers and kind of aligning it all as I go. Right, and I'll go in there like that. Right, that's one end. That's the other end. Okay, now don't glue the top. Okay, you don't need to, just glue the bottom. Reason being, if you want to pop this off and get to the people that are in here and set up, you know, whatever sort of design you're doing inside there, you want to be able to lift the roof off. It just makes it a little bit easier. But at least have it on for now while we finish the build. It'll help to align the bottom of the pillars while the glue dries. And for a moment, we're going to be working upside down as well. So, okay, so now the next thing will be the stairs. Now, as you can see here, we have our balustrade, which means that the opening of the stairs must be going that way, right? There's no point doing that way because you're going to be walking straight into the balustrade. So drop that into those little holes there, just like that. Okay, and a couple of drops of glue. Try to keep it as out of sight as possible. Okay, there we go. That's the top done. Now, I did forget to put the top on the bar, so I do apologise. So I'll come back to that in just a second. Now, as soon as that's dry, we can put those together. Now, there's a couple of different things you can do here with the bottom. You can glue this to this, or glue it to that, or glue it to both. It's really up to you. So why I'm saying that is putting that in here and then putting the second floor on and trying to line those up when you can't see them is a nightmare. I've spent 10 minutes trying to do it. If you put these on this section like that, right, and the same on there. Now they're a snug fit, so you might not need to glue them, it's up to you. But if you put those on there, just like that, you'll find that when you're working up the right way, it's a bit easier to see the bottoms. You can lean into there and see the bottoms and line them up a little bit easier. All right. So if you're going to take it apart, that's the way you want to glue the top, not the bottom. Or you can just glue both if you don't think you're ever going to have to take it apart. It's up to you. All right, we're almost there. Now, last thing for me to do, I'm going to pop this roof back off before I glue the final panel of the roof on. I'll pop that back off because I did forget to put the bar on. So I'll just run a drop of glue across there, and that's what this guy's for. Finish off the bar. There we go, just like that. All right, now you can have a few brewskis. All right, what do you think? Looking pretty good so far. So we'll put this guy back on. They are fiddly because they are a tight fit. That's the idea though, so it's not going to fall apart on you. There we go, whoops. There we go. Right, and that should sit on top of the wall, as you can see there. Now there's no need to glue that, it just looks nice and neat, there's no gap. And then all we need to do now is just another bead of glue around here. Oh, look at that, I've run out. All right, now here's a little tip for you. Because I've only just used the glue, there's no dry glue in here, so I can take that nozzle off and reuse the same nozzle on the next tube of glue. All right. Now the reason I'm doing that is because if you've ever left a tube of glue for a few days and it's gone hard in the nozzle, you lose your nozzle. All right. This way, you've only used one nozzle between two tubes, and I now have a spare nozzle. So anytime I need to, I've got a few backups. If I've got a tube of glue there, I know glue's cheap, but you know, if you're doing a lot of stuff, you really don't want to keep throwing it in the bin. All right, a few of the old trusty bull clips while that dries. The good thing about bull clips as well is that just that little bit of extra pressure makes the glue dry faster. All right, looks like we're pretty much there. Nothing else to put on, just waiting for those to dry. And that's it. So there's our final build. Quite a nice looking piece, actually. You know, considering we've lost a couple of steps here by narrowing it, we've had to drop the height, and it still looks really good. I'm really happy with that. So there we go. So that's the narrow 180 hairpin grandstand. Thank you very much. There you go. What a great piece, and really easy to assemble. Just follow the guidelines. Remember, you can pause anytime. You can actually jump into your settings on YouTube and slow it all down and watch it slowly, whatever you want to do. But yeah, great little video. And there's a finished piece. As you can see, it's really quite nice. Now, the lower level is 8mm high, so it's designed to sit up against a Carrera track. But, you know, obviously that's going to work no matter what. We've spaced these out equally with the bottom layer. So if you are sitting it on a table, directly on a table, these are all quite evenly spaced and look quite neat. So quite a nice finish. There you go. Thanks for watching. And as always, when in doubt, go flat out.